England's Lionesses have defended their Euros title, and still they are the European champions. Alexis Nunes here for the post-match analysis alongside Julien, who has joined us as well, and Sam Marsden. But I believe first we're going to have to go back to Box Park after England's win on penalties over the world champion Spain in this final. Ralph, talk to me, man. How is the atmosphere?
Alexis, I can literally see people crying. Floods of people crying. People dancing, people singing, people just going crazy, jumping on tables, jumping off tables. We were right. We were right. And I'm so happy. I can't believe it. Like, I've literally just got my voice back. I've had to drink like 2 bottles of water. I don't know what to say. But yeah, the vibes can't done. The party can't done. Good luck getting everyone out of here today.
All right. Well, we'll definitely catch up with Ralph in a little bit too to see about the vibes there in Box Park. But we've got Julien and we've got Sam here with us. Oh my days, where to even start? Jules, let me come to you because you're the voice of reason. I know you love a good tactical masterpiece, and usually when Spain is playing, for the tactic lovers such as yourselves, you can't really ask for anything more. Tactically on their day, they are the best team. They go up 1-0. You think that this could be a repeat of the World Cup final where they just hung on, but instead we're talking about the Lionesses and their grit and their mentality that hung on. So where did it go wrong for Spain, do you think?
Well, there's a few things for me. The first one is I think they got too comfortable. That first half they were so dominant. They were in the lead, as you said. They scored that first goal. At the start of the second half, it was pretty much the same. And I think they thought, this is it. We're going to control the pace. We're going to control the tempo. We might even score a second. But even if we don't, it doesn't matter so much because England were so inoffensive, really, apart from the Hemp shot in that first half that Catacol saves. There's just nothing else, really. And I think they took their eyes off the ball a little bit. It was that cross from Chloe Kelly. The change, to be fair, Chloe Kelly coming on, brought a little bit more energy to that England team that played slightly higher up on the pitch at the start of the second half. And then that was it. And after that goal, we went back again to Spain being very dominant, but just not taking the chances. I was very disappointed by the starting lineup from Monse. I won't lie. I don't understand why Claudia Pina doesn't start a game like this. Atenea has been really good coming off the bench. Why would you start her in a game like that tonight? Especially, and we talked about it together, I think, on Friday when we knew that England's difficulties defensively were on that left-hand side with Greenwood and Carter. Why changing that front three that's worked so well for Spain? It didn't make sense for me, and I think that's a mistake that Monse made.
Sam, let's go to you then as well, because even though I know you're a proud Englishman, so somewhere deep down inside, you are definitely celebrating this, but you also, of course, are very close to the Spanish team living in Barcelona, especially the Catalan players as well, who are such a heartbeat of this Spain team. Do you feel like the headlines are going to be, you know, what Spain did wrong or what England got right?
Tommy got wrong, like Jules says. I don't know. The starting lineup one is a difficult question. I do agree with Jules. I thought she should have stuck with Pino and Caldente on the right. What she's trying to do is she's trying to get Caldente back onto the left because obviously she's not been at her best in the last 2 knockout rounds, perhaps looking for a little bit of an element of surprise. And you might have said it was working at halftime, obviously with her getting the goal coming in from the left. But just, I feel like she was sort of outmanaged by Serena today. You know, there was that spell in the second half just around when England got the goal, when they pushed Bronze into midfield and they sort of caught Spain out and had a little spell which led to the goal. And after the goal, when Spain weren't really they lost a little bit of control of the game, perhaps for the only spell. And they did get it back when they brought on Pina, Vicky. But I just think she perhaps wasn't brave enough with some of the decisions, perhaps bringing on Salma Padaloelu. Obviously, I get what she's doing, but she's been desperately out of form for Barcelona. She's been out of form at this Euro. Someone who has been scoring goals, who is a box player, is Cristina Martin Prieto. She scored a goal at these Euros. She causes problems a little bit like, you know, a little bit more direct, a little bit anti-Spain in the same way sort of, you know, England throw on Agyemang. But it felt like perhaps being a little bit brave and perhaps going for a little bit more than that. I understand perhaps why she was hoping for a Paralluelo moment, but it didn't come. And yeah, she's going to get... Look, it comes down to penalties at the end of the day. It can go either way when it gets that far. And she didn't do a lot wrong, but I think she did enough wrong for there to be questions moving forward about whether she's the best for this team. Obviously, even before the tournament, there was the famous sort of fallout with Jenny Hermoso, and Hermoso saying, look, Spain can win this tournament, but if they do, it will be in spite of Tomé and not because of her. So I think that's going to be the main focus of the fallout in Spain, what her future holds.
Yeah, that definitely will be an interesting conversation to have. But Jules, we've talked about it all tournament long, and like I said, who are we to ever question the Serena Wiegman? I mean, Serena Wiegman and the Euros, that is a match made in heaven. It doesn't matter the team or the country. We know she's done it with her home country of the Netherlands, and here she's again back-to-back champion with England. But we've questioned a lot of her tactics going into this, and we actually went in questioning her squad going into this and the inclusion of Lauren James as well. Obviously, Lauren James, will get to her in a bit. But what did you think of her tactics in this final? Because as Sam said, it just seemed like, she outmanaged her opponent perfectly.
Yeah, I think she showed her experience today, and for Tomé it's the other way around. This is all new for her. She'd never been in a final. When for Wiegman it's the third in a row, winning it 3 times in a row with 2 different countries. It's pretty special. I'm not her biggest fan. I've never been. This is a very different England than the one that won 3 years ago. Obviously, very different style, very different performances. Let's not forget they win it on penalties. They won their quarterfinals on penalties. They were quite lucky as well in the semifinals against Italy too. And let's not even go back to the group stage and that France game and then the Netherlands game. So it's a very different England, but they show their resilience, they show their experience. And at times in knockout games especially, it's enough for you to win a tournament. And yes, they rode their luck massively. I don't think they have been the best team in this tournament by far. At the end of the day, they're lifting the trophy.
Yeah, I don't want to say if it feels unfair, but Sam, when you look at Spain, all they've done, all the storylines with them, heading into this, finally getting players like Aitana back, especially knowing that she had to be hospitalized with meningitis just before this. Looking at Alexia Putellas, at one point she was contender for player of the tournament. The way she was going, it was giving us the Alexia Putellas of old. We know that Spain had to do without her in the last Euros, unfortunately. Does it feel like Spain, unfortunately and unfairly, have fallen short in this one?
I don't know if unfairly is the word, because obviously, they were beaten fairly today. They had, they created 22 shots to England's 8, but they didn't create very, very good chances. I think England defended quite well. I thought Jess Carter, to be fair to her, was good, given the sort of, the criticism she's had throughout the tournament, including from me after that France game and after that Sweden game. For her to come back and, defend like she did today in a final was good, especially after everything that's happened in the last week with the abuse she's received online. I think, like Jules says, there's no doubt England have not been the best team at these Euros, but they are the European champions. And, it's credit to Serena, who's done it again 3 times in a row now. That's a remarkable achievement. I think the mentality and the competitiveness of England is what's got them over the line. I think Leah Williamson said it yesterday when she was speaking before the game. And you could kind of see that today. It looked like perhaps it dropped a little bit after the Spain goal. It looked like maybe they did look a little bit beaten, but they were recouped for the second half. And yeah, the way they defended, the way they were solid. They were clearly the second best team in the game, but they did what they had to do to keep Spain out, got the game to penalties, and then won it. So that's the mark of a good team as well. But yeah, like Jules says, perhaps certainly not the best team in the tournament. So Spain, I think, will be really hurting because of that, because I think they feel they were the best team in the tournament, and they probably were.
Yeah, and Jules, I mean, just looking at the scenes there from Box Park at Wembley, I think, as Ralph said, good luck trying to get all those Lioness fans out of there anytime soon. But Jules, just looking back as well at England, as we keep saying, definitely not the best team of the tournament, left a lot to be desired from game 1. We were talking about if they were even going to get out the group the way they looked against France in that opening game when they lost 2. But now, what do you think England's identity could or should be? Because we went from them being powerhouses, winning the Euros, really enjoying what we were seeing from the Lionesses, to 4 years on, we were questioning if maybe Serena Wiegman should change her tactics, move on some other players, find a different identity completely. But now, when they're not playing the beautiful football that we necessarily want to see, but it's won them another Euros title. So what should this Lionesses team be going forward, or what changes would you make for them the better? Like, for example, maybe starting Chloe Kelly.
Yeah, maybe you're right. And there's the Lauren James dilemma that we discussed a lot through the tournament on the show. Even about Serena Wiegman, is she staying now? Can you top this? Or you can top this if you win the World Cup in 2 years. But can they actually win the World Cup? Should she stop now on a high? 3 finals in a row if you count the World Cup ones that they lost to Spain, obviously. And it's 2 European championships in a row. 3 for her on her own is incredible. And I think we saw enough in this tournament to also see that, yeah, of course, that she's won it and they've won it. This is great. It's amazing for them. But that maybe it looked like it was the end of the cycle. Certainly, as we said, not the same England team, not as dominant as the last Euros, where they beat Spain in the quarters, where they beat Sweden, where they beat Germany in the final, where they were playing much better football than what we've seen from them, really, from the start to the end of this tournament. They haven't been great at all collectively, but the resilience is there, the experience is there, the mentality is there. But maybe it's time to move on from Wiegman and have somebody new with a different profile, maybe different style. But I think the resilience and that experience will always be very valuable, even if Wiegman stays.
Yeah, Sam, what do you think about that and what Jules said in terms of what to look forward to now from England's Lionesses, especially considering we're about 2 years out from that World Cup?
Yeah, like you said, they've got a lot to look forward to because they've got the World Cup now in 2 years. They go into that with this mentality. You know, a lot of those players that Jules have talked about that have played today. You know, you've got Julien, who's 19, coming on. You've got Russo. You've got Leah Williamson. They're still going to be around in 2 years. Wiegman, like we say, whether through luck or whatnot in this tournament, she's got to 5 finals in a row now. So England are going to be a massive threat at that World Cup with that this belief that they can't be beaten.
Yeah, exactly. And let's talk about some players now too, Jules. Let's start with Lauren James. Why don't we? Because we were talking about her again before this tournament kicked off, where there were questions on if she should have been a part of the squad. She did show why she probably should have been. We spoke with our dear friend, who is always the air of positivity, Mark Ogden, before, and he always questioned that, yes, a fully fit Lauren James on her day is that player, is almost like England's answer to Spain's Aitana Bonmatí or Alexia Putellas, that X factor that even if she's 1% fit, you want to put her on the pitch because you just feel like she just needs a moment and she'll pull off something amazing, like we have seen in moments. But the thing is, on the big stage in the big games, those moments haven't come enough. And again, she goes off injured today. We knew she was probably carrying a niggle or two coming into this tournament on a whole. But overall, what do you think England should do, especially with her? Continue to build a team around her? Or is it time to probably look at other options that we have seen in this tournament shine in her absence?
Yeah, maybe. I still think that if she's fully fit, she's the best they have, really. And maybe if she was 80% fit, 70, maybe less than that. Today, she's never looked in it, really. And I'm not saying she was injured before at the start of the final, or she got something new through the final. I'm not saying she didn't fancy it or anything like that, but she was never in it. She was never in that final. They were playing with 10 women, through the whole 14 minutes that she was on the pitch. And then Chloe Kelly, or it could have been anybody else, really then made a difference because suddenly England had 11 women on the pitch, 11 players, and that's the big difference. And if that's the case, I just don't know if it's worth her starting a game like today, a final, such a big game against an opponent like that, when you know you're going to defend most of the time, when you will have to run. And we said again together when we previewed the final that Wiegman had to find somebody to counter that Spanish midfield. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for England. And yet they won with Toon, Stanwell, and Ward. But I still think, if Lauren James is not fit enough, like she was clearly not today, whether it was before the game or through the game, it's counterproductive to play her in a team like this.
Well, we're just seeing that Aitana Bonmatí has actually been named player of the tournament. She accepted the award, but you could tell she was dead behind the eyes. I'm telling you, it reminds me of the Men's World Cup when Kai Havertz got player of the match in the game that Germany were knocked out, and they brought him back out to hold the trophy, and he was just like dead behind the eyes. But Sam, Aitana, it's rare that we would ever argue that she should be the player of any tournament. But what do you make of her getting this award now? Deserving?
Slightly surprised, to be honest, because obviously she missed the group stage. She did come back for the final game against Italy, obviously with the whole viral meningitis situation. She was the outstanding player, I guess, in the quarterfinal and the semi-final. But just given the fact they've lost the final to England, the fact she wasn't playing in the group stage, I thought that might have counted against her. I think quite clearly when you watch Spain today, any final, any big game, she's the one who, when it really matters, when the chips are down, when they're sort of pushing for that goal, she's the one looking to get on the ball, trying to drive them forward. She was perhaps missing a final touch today certainly in terms of shooting. Her finishing was slightly off, but she was certainly the one once again driving them forward. So for me, she's head and shoulders above everyone else in the world really at the moment, and that's why she's won the Ballon d'Or the last 2 times. But yeah, slightly surprised she's won player of the tournament, even though she has been probably the player of the knockout stages. So I guess it makes sense to slightly overlook the fact she wasn't massively involved in the group stages.
Jules, what about you? Would she be your player of the tournament as well, or are you like Sam, a little bit surprised with this?
Yeah, a little bit surprised. I agree with everything Sam just said. For me, Patry was the player of the tournament. Guijarro was just amazing. Even today, 120 minutes of running and organizing everything and dictating the pace of the game. I just think she's incredible, really. And because she played from the start, and like Sam just said, for Aitana, we had to wait to see her, and then she was great in the quarterfinal, semi-final, and even tonight, apart from missing her penalty, she was still really good. But Guijarro, for me, was just the best player that we've seen in these Euros.
And then in the final today, Sam, too, just a couple of players that we were talking about as well before this in the pre-match. One of them was Alessia Russo. And she's coming off of a brilliant season for her, an historic season for her and Arsenal after winning the Champions League as well. She was scoring left, right, and centre too. Alongside my girl Bunny Shaw, though, we're just gonna stick a pin right there. Anyways, but Alessia Russo, we were speaking about her before and saying that, you still feel like you're expecting a bit more from her, especially in these big games as well. We end up talking about the Lauren James, etc., the Chloe Kellys and whatnot. But from what you saw for her today, was this the Alessia Russo that you wanted to see?
She took her goal really well, didn't she? And that was the key moment for England, really. It was a fantastic header, left Katakoi with no chance, and Katakoi had been saving everything since she came in following tonsillitis in the quarter-final stage. And, she worked tirelessly. I think she's probably always going to be one of those players that perhaps not goes under the radar because we talk about a lot and she does score a lot of goals, but perhaps because she's a striker and you look at her goals, you sometimes undervalue what she brings to the team in terms of her work rate, in terms of her chance creation. I don't think it was her best game today, but it was a difficult game for England. She spent a lot of the time without the ball against the Spain side who had possession, so had to work really hard. But yeah, what you want from your number 9 in that sense is that they work hard without the ball and that they take the chance when it comes their way. And she had, I think, 2 chances. Obviously, the first one very, very early on, good running behind, brought a save from Koya, and then the header was really good. So she's done her job in the 70 minutes for sure.
Jules, what about you? Your thoughts on Alessia Russo? I suppose in this entire tournament, obviously in this game, she did score the goal that changed the game in England's favour, but it also was off of an assist from Chloe Kelly, and some would argue that it was Chloe Kelly's inclusion that actually changed the game as well for England. But your thoughts on Alessia Russo overall in this tournament?
I thought she never had the service that she deserved in the whole tournament. I think when you have a striker like that in that kind of form, to not really play on her strength is quite crazy. And again, today she scores. Okay, this is the only chance she has. I think it's probably the only ball she has, decent ball she has in the box, and that's it. And then she played, and Ajiman came on, and I think she won more draws than she actually made passes in her time on the pitch. So England just defended for most of that game, and it's a shame, I think, because Russo deserves to have more service. And for Chloe Kelly, just think about the last 6 months that she's had, from not playing at all in the WSL to moving to Arsenal, going back to Arsenal, winning the Champions League, now winning the Euros, playing key parts in those 2 huge trophies that she would never forget. Really, it's just an incredible destiny for her.
Yeah, Sam. And then I suppose in the contrary now, just looking at Spain, what questions do you think are going to be asked after this one? Because you can't really get down on Spain too much. When things go to penalties, again, it's like a raffle overall. They did look like the favorites. They did look, head and shoulders above the rest all tournament long, apart from where for the first time in a long time, they did look like they could have been beaten against Germany. Germany found a way to frustrate them as well. But what questions will be asked of Spain now going forward?
Like we said, the first question which needs resolving now is the coach situation. Monse Tommy, I think her contract's up at the end of August. Basically running until the end of this tournament, and you couple this tournament with the fact last summer with the players they've got, they came up short in the Olympic Games as well, losing to Brazil in the semi-final, to Germany in the 3rd, 4th place final. So it's not just this Euros, that's 2 back-to-back tournaments now where you'd probably say maybe not maybe on a par with the US last summer, but certainly that they should be getting to the final at the Olympic Games. Certainly should be beating this England team, I think, based on the tournament, based on the players, based on the freshness as well that we saw in extra time. And that's ultimately going to come down to the tactical tweaks, to decisions that Tommy made in the game. So that's the first decision which needs to be made. There's no obvious sort of candidate to replace her, which may work in her favour. So we'll see what the Federation does in that regard. From there, you've got a couple of questions to make, perhaps more looking at the next sort of Euro cycle as opposed to the World Cup. Eleni Paredes, Alexia Putellas, they're players who are sort of perhaps at some point, certainly if not coming to the end of their their spell as sort of Spain players, certainly come into this sort of moment where you sort of question whether there are younger players ready to step in. I think Alexis Nunes, especially after the injuries, there's been a lot of talk about whether she's back to her best or not. She certainly says she is, and she was brilliant in the group stages. I just feel that she's not quite back to the player that she was, and I don't think she ever will be. When we spoke about Aitana before, she's someone who sort of, in adverse situations, does sort of take the team on the back, and I don't think Alexia can quite do that anymore. We saw it in the Champions League final, even though she had a great season for Barca. Just in these big games, she just doesn't quite have that extra 10% anymore, I don't think. So that's sort of a question that Spain are going to have to answer, especially when you've got players like sort of Vicky Lopez knocking on the door ahead of the World Cup. But in general, they're in a good place. That they've lost today, they've still got incredible talent. They've got, players that didn't start today, including, Pina, Vicky Lopez, Sama Paduelo, all these guys sort of coming through who are sort of going to be pushing to come into the team. There's bags of talent in the country, so they're in a good place. But yeah, they've got a few decisions to make over certainly the coach and some key players, if not for the World Cup, certainly for the next Euro cycle, which will be especially painful for Alexia, because obviously she missed the last Euros through injury. She's lost the final in this one. Now she's probably looking at 4 years' time. She's going to be sort of 35 then. I think she's 31 now. So it's going to be especially painful for her, you feel, for her tonight.
I'm just saying 35 is quite a young age. Just saying. Anyways, let's go back quickly to Box Park now at Wembley, where we'll find Ralph again. Ralph, hopefully you can still hear me now. I know you've been hanging out with some of the Lioness fans. What are they saying now? Never a doubt, right?
Sorry, what was that?
How are the Lioness fans now? What are they saying?
They're still jumping on tables and jumping off tables. The atmosphere from the beginning since I got here has been insane, literally, I couldn't feel any tension. I feel like the energy here transferred all the way to the game, and it felt like I was there right here. The atmosphere is insane. I'm losing my voice. I'm losing my hearing. I don't know if you can see behind me, but they're literally partying. The DJ's doing overtime. So I think I want to get down there and join. So if you guys are local, I don't know where you are in the world right now, just tell them at the door that my boy Ralph's inside. I'm trying to go inside and enjoy. So let me know I'm here, man.
All right, well, we'll let Ralph go and enjoy, because I know Ralph loves him a party or two. But Jules, let me come to you for a bit more of a voice of reason then as well. Just final thoughts as well on the tournament. I know you spent some time out there. Of course, final thoughts on England and Spain, and maybe even your French girls as well, who I think were also looking like they could have been big contenders.
Yeah, I think it's been a great tournament. Sam and I were lucky to be there with our ESPN FC team. It was great. I mean, Switzerland is an expensive country, but when you move away from that, it's been good. I think I'm not sure if this Women's Euros is ready for more teams. I think this worked really well, and we saw some big upset. We saw some big games. We saw some teams that would have a lot of regrets that will haunt them for a long time. Spain, but also France in that loss to Germany, probably Sweden in their loss to England as well. We've seen history being made, obviously, with Serena Wiegman and England going back-to-back European champions, which is very special, and we will never be able to take that away from them anyway. And I think he also leaves a lot of question marks over the future and the next 2 years until the World Cup, and then probably, as Sam was saying, the next Euro cycle of 4 years on who will be in charge, who will be the dominant force. Will it still be Spain? Can England use this win to maybe get better collectively? Because again, they're not going to do this again. They're not going to win the World Cup by playing so poorly. They're not going to win the Euros again by being so poorly and just relying on experience and resilience. It just doesn't work like that. It worked for them this month and in this tournament, but it's not going to work again for them like that. So they need a bit more, and we see that. France are at the start of a cycle with a new head coach. Let's see about Germany, who also have a new head coach. So there's a lot of really interesting things in the women's game for the next 2 years and 4 years.
Not Jules complaining about prices in Switzerland when he's got a house in London, like 10 vacation houses in south of France and Paris. Like, okay, money bags, Jules. But Sam, what about you then? You, of course, were out there as well in Switzerland. Final thoughts on, of course, England, Spain, but also on what stood out for you for the tournament and the Euros, the Women's Euros, and as we plan for those next 2 years, at least until the Women's World Cup.
Yeah, like Jules says, I think the organisation and how the tournament's gone in Switzerland has been fantastic. I think there were 31 games, and I think 29 were sold out. A record for attendance, almost 700,000 across the games. It was sort of really well organised, and the quality was good as well. I think you're seeing sort of how many teams can genuinely compete now. With you seeing Italy get into semi-finals. You've still got the Scandinavian teams knocking around, and even the teams that didn't get out of the group stages. We're seeing how much they've progressed in terms of great moments like Poland getting their first win against Denmark. I just love knockout football. I want more knockout games, so I slightly disagree with you. I think maybe we could go to 24. Maybe the next cycle is slightly too early, but certainly in the one after, if you think about some of the teams that sort of aren't there, that have been there in the past, and certainly wouldn't be much worse than Wales, Poland, who I'm not criticizing them. I'm saying there's teams that are as good as them in terms of Scotland recently, Austria in the past have been good. I think you could find 8 teams. It just feels like the knockout rounds go so quickly when you only have 7 games. I love that sort of extra last 16 to sort of bed you in before the real drama starts. But no, I think it's been a good tournament. I think Switzerland, the team, and the way the country got behind the team was great as well. I was at the game in Bern when Switzerland lost to Spain in the quarterfinal, and the support on the way to the ground and all around the stadium and after the game was incredible. So I think this is going to be the case that sort of every Euros moving forward now. It's just growing and growing and growing, isn't it?
Yeah, it has grown and grown as well. Jules, do you want to come in quickly on what Sam said? You don't like knockout football? You don't want to see France playing extra games, maybe?
No, I do. I agree with him. I'm just not sure if you just don't want to lower the quality of the whole tournament, and that's it. You don't want to have a last 16 round, but where teams win 4-0 in each of those games, for example. And that's the only thing. And I agree with him. I don't think it will be for the next Euros. Maybe for the one after that, and when they feel that they're ready to include another 8 teams. And he's right. There were some teams who were not in this tournament, or some who could have qualified if we'd gone to a last 16 round, for example. So I hear his argument, his point. I'm just not sure they're just ready yet. And this was such a great tournament that I think another edition like this will do. And after that, we can look at maybe expanding.
All right. Well, after record-breaking crowds and a couple of weeks, it wasn't pretty. They had to fight. They had to dig deep. They had to go to extra time and penalties on more than one occasion. But in the end, England's Lionesses have defended their title, back-to-back Women's Euros champions. London is clearly the place to be. None of us are really, well, Jules is near enough there right now, but I don't know if he's going to go out and join that crowd there.
No chance.
Box Park. No chance. Jules checked out after France dipped out. But anyways, England, congratulations to the Lionesses and Serena Wiegman. Absolutely brilliant stuff from them all tournament long. Resilience and a mentality that looks like it is second to none. And on behalf of all of us here at ESPN FC, thank you for hanging with us over the last couple of weeks, and we will see you again soon.